Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling, well, one of the biggest headaches out there, education.
Mm-hmm. The persistent one.
Right. I mean, for decades, it's been this impossible balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
How do you improve outcomes and widen access and somehow cut costs all at once?
It sounds, well, almost contradictory, doesn't it? Like you can't possibly achieve all three.
Yeah,
And typically, education is already the largest recurring expense for most government.
exactly. And then any real innovation, especially tech-heavy stuff, needs this massive upfront investment.
Which just makes the access gap worse, ironically.
Yeah,
The places needing innovation most are the ones least likely to afford that initial hit.
but that's what makes today's topic so interesting. We're looking at materials from Eon Reality about their new financing model. It's called the ImpactShare 1920 model.
Yeah, and their white paper, ROI in Education, how the 1920 model makes learning pay for itself.
And the claims are, frankly, pretty staggering. They're talking about eliminating capital risk entirely and getting verified positive ROI like 600, maybe even up to 1,800% within the first year.
It is a bold claim, and it suggests a really fundamental shift, moving away from just selling tech. It's positioning this as a kind of shared investment.
Turning education from a cost center into, what, a growth engine?
That seems to be the pitch,
Yeah.
a self-sustaining one. The big question for us is how? How do they propose doing this without the usual giant budget requests?
Okay, let's unpack this then. What is this 1920 structure? How does it supposedly get around those financial barriers that have stopped big tech pushes before?
So the core mechanism is something they call outcome-based financing,
Outcome-based, meaning
Eon Reality shoulders most of the initial financial risk. They act more like a co-investor in the success of the school or the university rather than just a vendor selling a product.
All right, let's break down the numbers. 1920, start with the 1. What's that?
Right. The 1 stands for the 1% activation contribution.
1%. That's tiny for a major rollout.
Exactly. It's institutions required buy-in, their sort of initial investment to get started, but it's deliberately minimal.
Skin in the game, but not something that requires, bond measures or huge capital campaigns.
Precisely. The idea is to remove that huge capital hurdle right at the start, make it almost negligible.
Okay, then the 9, that sounds like the big piece. 9% EON impact share credit.
That's the bulk of the upfront value, yeah. And it's delivered in kind, not as cash.
In kind, meaning, what does it cover?
It covers the core stuff needed to launch at scale, quickly. So the AI platform, the virtual reality infrastructure, access to their whole content library, apparently over 9,000 courses ready to go, plus hosting, onboarding, training, basically everything to switch on a virtual campus almost overnight.
So EON puts up the expensive tech and content part up front.
That's where they absorb the risk. They're front-loading the value.
Which brings us to this is the 2% success-linked platform fee. This sounds like the interesting part.
It really is, because this is the annual fee, but it's tied directly to verified results
Verified how?
against pre-agreed targets. These could be cost savings or hitting certain enrollment numbers or maybe improving job placement rates for graduates. If the institution doesn't hit those specific, measurable goals,
They don't pay the full fee.
correct, they only pay the full 2% if the agreed-upon impact is achieved and, crucially, audited. It forces accountability. EON only gets its full return if the institution succeeds measurably.
That is a critical difference. It flips the model from pay for the software, hope it works, to pay based on confirmed results.
Right.
Okay, so the structure seems designed to lower the risk bar significantly. But let's talk about those returns. Getting 600% to 1,800% ROI, that needs more than just a clever financing trick. How is that calculated?
Yeah, it's definitely not just about cutting a few budget lines. The sources explain they measure value across 3 interconnected dimensions. It transforms education, in their view, from just an expense item into an asset that generates returns in multiple ways.
Okay, dimension 1.
The first is return on efficiency, or ROE. This is probably the most straightforward.
Digital transformation savings, basically.
Pretty much. Using the AI and the virtual or augmented reality tech to streamline operations and cut existing costs. Think admin automation, optimizing facility use.
How does that translate into, say, the 20-35% operational savings claimed for K-12 schools? Where are the cuts?
Well, it's a mix. Moving labs into VR means fewer physical consumables, less equipment upkeep.
Okay, I can see that for science or tech.
Right. And less reliance on physical classrooms means potential savings on utilities, space, maybe even staffing ratios in some areas. Digital resources replace physical textbooks, materials. One source mentioned vocational training cutting way down on maintaining expensive, rarely used physical machinery.
Makes sense. Okay, Dimension 2 sounds like it's about growth, return on expansion, or ROX.
Exactly. ROX is crucial for hitting those really high ROI figures. This is about generating new value
How so?
by using the virtual campus tech to increase enrollment without building new buildings, reaching students globally.
Ah, new markets.
New markets, and potentially new revenue streams, too. Things like offering specialized micro-credentials or professional development courses online. It turns the tech into a potential profit center, not just a cost saver.
Okay, efficiency, expansion, and the third one. This sounds broader. Social return on investment, SROI.
Yes, SROI tries to capture the wider benefits to society,
Like,
like measurable improvements in employment rates for graduates, tracking actual wage growth, or even how well the program addresses regional inequalities by giving more people access to quality training. It's about quantifying the public good aspect.
right, the societal dividend. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's connect this to the numbers they report for different sectors. TVET seems to get the biggest boost.
It does, yeah. Technical and vocational education and training, they report 9 to 16 times ROI there.
Why so high?
Because TVET can leverage both efficiency and expansion heavily. Huge savings from virtual labs and workshops like we discussed. But also big gains on the expansion side, maybe 15–25% value there, just by speeding things up.
Speeding up training.
Yeah, immersive VR training can often shorten the time it takes someone to become competent in a skill. So students get through the program and into jobs faster. That means the college can handle more students over time with the same resources. Faster throughput.
I see. And for K-12?
For K-12, it's more heavily weighted towards the efficiency savings, the ROE. That's where they see the 5 to 8 times ROI.
And universities, they often have massive physical campuses.
Right, so for universities, they see 6 to 12 times ROI, with a significant chunk coming from reducing the need for expanding or even maintaining that large physical footprint. Maybe 20–30% reduction in physical campus costs over time.
Okay, so the model seems adaptable. But what about the timeline? You mentioned speed. Traditional tech projects in education can drag on for years before showing results.
That's a key claim here. Unprecedented speed to value. The sources suggest the average payback period is just 9 to 12 months.
9 to 12 months to recoup the initial 1% and start seeing positive cash flow.
That's the claim. Net positive cash flow within the first fiscal year.
How is that even possible?
It goes back to that 9% in-kind credit. Because the platform, and crucially, that huge library of content, are ready on day one.
Ah, no lengthy development phase.
Exactly. You're not waiting 2–3 years to build courses or the system. The efficiency gains, the ROE, can start immediately because you're instantly substituting digital for physical, virtual labs for real ones. Savings start right away.
And this speed, plus the low 1% entry point, that seems aimed at wider access, democratization. The sources mention ROI might actually be proportionally higher in lower income regions. Why?
Well, think about it. The gap between the existing, often under-resourced physical system and what the high-efficiency digital system offers is much larger.
So the impact of the change is bigger.
Right. The potential for savings and expansion is greater compared to the baseline. When you introduce these tools with zero capital risk into a system struggling with outdated, expensive methods, the transformation is just more dramatic. They call this cumulative effect the innovation dividend.
Innovation dividend, like a compounding return.
Sort of. It grows over time as the efficiency savings free up resources, the expansion generates new revenue, and the social impact creates a more skilled workforce. They reinforce each other.
Okay, let's zoom out even further. Macroeconomics. They're talking about impacts at the national level.
Yeah, the projections are pretty bold for national governments. They suggest this model could boost GDP by 0.8% to 1.5% within 3 to 5 years.
That's huge. That's like major infrastructure project territory.
It is. Comparable to building high-speed rail or upgrading the energy grid, but achieved through investing in human capital instead of concrete and steel.
And part of that GDP boost comes from getting people into the workforce faster.
That's a big driver. They project a 30–40% reduction in time to employment. Graduates become productive taxpayers sooner.
Plus, there's an environmental angle.
The climate dividend, they call it.
Yeah.
A 25–40% reduction in the carbon footprint of education.
How? Just less commuting, fewer buildings.
Primarily, yes. Less travel to physical campuses, reduced energy consumption from buildings, fewer physical materials being produced and shipped. Digital substitution.
Okay, this whole thing sounds incredibly ambitious. Which brings up verification. If Eon's payment depends on success, how do they actually prove these ROE, ROX, SROI results, especially the social ones?
That's critical, obviously. It's not just the tech, it's the whole support and verification system wrapped around it.
Like what?
Well, there's training for educators, the Faculty Renaissance Initiative, to make sure they can actually use the tools effectively. But the key is the verification piece,
Which involves.
the Eon Impact Dashboard. It's supposed to provide real-time tracking of all these metrics, educational outcomes, financial savings, job placements, etc.
Real-time data.
And then that data gets audited. There's the Eon ROI audit process and annual impact reports. Importantly, these are designed to align with international standards.
Which ones? Specifically, UN Sustainable Development Goals. SDG 4 for quality education and SDG 8 for decent work and economic growth. So they need to show auditors, for instance, verified job placement numbers or documented cost savings to justify getting that 2% success-linked fee.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the core idea of this ImpactShare 1920 model is really to flip the economics. Use outcome-based financing, heavy upfront investment by the provider, and verified ROI tracking to turn education from this massive ongoing expense.
Into a potentially self-funding asset that drives growth. Using AI and XR tech as the enabler, but with the financial model being the key innovation unlocking it.
So what does this all mean, big picture?
Well, it seems designed to tackle that affordability and access problem head-on. By lowering the barrier to almost zero upfront cost and tying all future payments to proven results, it could dramatically change who can afford large-scale educational transformation, not just wealthy districts or nations.
Linking success directly to those auditable outcomes, financial and educational.
Which leaves us with a final thought. If this model, this outcome-based, minimal-risk financing tied to verified compounding returns, that innovation dividend, if it works for education, where else could it apply? Think about other huge public sectors we usually see only as cost centers, maybe preventative public health, or rolling out sustainable infrastructure. Could other fields use this kind of model, minimal capital risk upfront, payment tied to verified, maybe even GDP lifting impact down the line?
That's a fascinating question, isn't it? Could you unlock major public investments in areas currently stuck because of those huge initial costs simply by shifting the risk and tying payment to proven audited results?
Something for you to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.